Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. As always, today we've got my friend Chris here to talk about all this cool stuff that he's building in the crypto space. We'll talk about maybe a few ecosystems and just in general, hash things out, see where things are at. So Chris, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure as always. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Happy to have you back. I think the first place to start naturally would be for folks that haven't met you yet. You want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Chris Swenor. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Reach. Reach is the answer to the question of how do we bring blockchain into mainstream. To be a little bit more specific to that, it's my hypothesis on how to do that is bringing more developers into the space.
Mhm.
So Reach is a blockchain development platform that is exponentially faster, safer, and easier for people to write actually blockchain applications. And when I say exponentially, I'm not over exaggerating. Real live use case. We're about to actually launch a DEX next month, and the number of lines for the pool code for a AMM DEX is only 270 lines of code. Compare that to thousands of lines of code if you had to actually write that by hand. And not
Yep.
only that, but the code itself is automatically formally verified. So if you don't know what formal verification is it's mathematically guaranteed to be correct. So exponentially faster, exponentially safer.
Yeah, pretty much a no-brainer then, right? So for someone that it might be hard to parse out what that means. Maybe they have no experience in the development world, what have you. Maybe you could think of this, and keep me honest here, Chris, but this sort of like modular components and abstraction of the lower level work that you have to do to build things in this space. Would that be a fair
Right.
statement?
Yeah, right now the to build a blockchain application, a developer has to think at a very low level in the blockchain space. They have to do everything manually. And if you do any of those things and make a mistake anywhere, you leave an exploit that your entire contract will be exploited and all of your money gets lost, or all of our users' money gets lost. So what we've done is we've written a higher level language that is easier to actually understand and write. And when you compile it, it outputs all of that low level code. So you don't have to think about all of those things.
Makes sense. Yeah, definitely a powerful tool. I think that's one of the main reasons why we had that chat we had last time.
Yeah. And
That
like
being
since then, like I think that I forget how long ago that was, but we have
months, yeah.
now over 4,000 developers that have built an application on our platform, and we're at around at least a dozen well-funded startups building on the platform as well. So we've taken off a rocket since the last time we talked.
That's fantastic. I mean, can you maybe give me a little bit of an idea, and folks who are watching an idea, like what ecosystems that you're seeing that adoption in? I know we talked,
Yeah.
it's like it's agnostic, the tools that you built, but
Yep. So yeah, Reach itself is blockchain agnostic. So the developers that write can decide which chain they want to launch on. Currently, we can export to all the EVM chains, so your Ethereums and your Polygons and Avalanches, and everybody else has the EVM. But we also do Algorand and Conflux, and the next chain that we're going to be doing is Cosmos. But to answer your question of where do the developers choose, it's been Algorand. Pretty much 90% of the developers that come into space, because with Reach, it's very easy to develop with. And so the question is like, which chain gives me low costs, it's not bad on the environment, high throughput, and all of the best things about what like a blockchain can to be. And we handle any kind of onboarding pain that might happen. So large majority of the developers are actually choosing to launch an Algorand now.
got it. So let's steer in that direction. I know you and I have talked, offline about Algorand. I've been doing a lot more research in that space
Mm,
recently, even just in the sort of underlying design of the protocol. I mean, what
yeah.
to you as a builder in the space appeals to you about Algorand? Why do you think people are choosing to build there?
Yeah. So to actually even talk as a real builder. So yes, I am
Mhm.
the CEO of Reach, but we have Reach Labs that we roll out real products as well, which we can talk about maybe later. And we chose to roll out our first product on Algorand. So I do actually have first actually level experience on why. And the reason is that number one, the The speed is great. I mean, you have instant finality. You don't need to wait for a long time to know that your block is going to be to actually be verified. You have a high amount of throughput. I believe right now they can do 1,000 transactions per second with a roadmap to 40,000. So it's going to be able to handle crazy amounts of speed on the base layer. And by the way, 1,000 transactions per second is way more than is needed today. So it's good to actually be able to grow when more people come on. But then also the cost, like it costs, I believe, 1/100th of a algo to do a transaction, which, with algo sitting at whatever its prices is now, is, less than 2 cents to actually do a transaction, which once again, it's 2/100ths of a cent to actually do a transaction. So it's pretty much negligible to work and use the blockchain.
Yeah, and the proof of stake underpinning, pure proof of stake in Algorand is a thing of beauty from a research perspective and just a foundational perspective. That being the core of the protocol, I think, is what a lot of people might not fully appreciate how well crafted it is.
I mean, it helps that Turing Award winner is the one that designed it. So you have Sylvia Macaulay, the founder of Algorand, and really the kind of the godfather of VRFs, which is many different types of cryptography is actually based on. So yeah, the technology and the team behind building the infrastructure is second to none. So super smart team. And one of the things I can actually talk about that is special about Algorand is the speed of change, and the speed of change, and without any hiccups. Like they haven't heard anything about Algorand going down or anything of that sort. And there's thousands of transactions, or actually millions of transactions a day that are actually on the Algorand blockchain right now, and it's not going down. It hasn't, and they've improved the blockchain as fast or faster than any other company, any other blockchain out there. So that's probably one of the most impressive things, is that they have such a good handle on process, and double checking their work to make sure that when they make big pushes like this and move fast, the blockchain doesn't hiccup at all.
What do you think is the reason that Algorand is often left in a secondary part of the conversation around smart contract enabled blockchains and a place where DeFi could become prevalent and all sorts of other things? Like, is it a lack of marketing? Is it just a different style that the community takes? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah. A lot of people out there complain about the marketing on Algorand, and I'm not one of those people. I think that the marketing is different than other places, where other chains, what they like to market is hype, is what the chain will be. And that's a lot more exciting and also a lot easier to build. It's so much easier to theory craft than it is to really build things. So Algorand, what they market is what has been done, what is actually out there, and what is working. And that's not as exciting as what the other people are saying, are hyping about, even though it's more real. So I personally don't think it's actually a marketing thing, because I think they're doing it the right way. They're not trying to pump their own numbers for the sake of pumping their numbers. They're trying to get the word out about what can really be done. And I do believe it is actually attracting the right people. The ecosystem growth is tremendous. I mean, I personally have firsthand experience working with funded companies building out products that are like either launched or knocking on the door of launching on Algorand. So you have companies like XBacked, which is a fully decentralized stablecoin. You have Dequency, that is tackling the music royalty problem with the music industry that way. You have Zone, which is like an esports platform. You have Tiny Chart, which is a nice decentralized analytics and building out quite a bit more tools. And I could go on and on. I'm sure I'm actually forgetting them. I'm probably gonna get yelled at about for not naming somebody, but there's tons of projects that are being built and launched, and audited and, like money being dumped into it. So it's really special to see real people building real things.
Yeah, I can respect the almost completely hype-free marketing approach, because I think that on a longer term basis, you have this really solid nucleus of people who really are bought into the mission, and not necessarily just bought in to the the speculative financial benefit of being an early part of something. And this is the other thing, we'll kind of get to the project that you're building in this space, because I do want for people to hear about that. As DeFi and some of these other really big sort of industries or topics or whatever you want to call them in the greater crypto space at large, do you think that's what's really going to pull Algorand into the conversation almost without any effort on the marketing side, just because there's now another option for scalable DeFi?
I think what you're going to see is a flippening, not the, ETH, Bitcoin, or anything over ETH or anything. What the flippening, though, that I'm speaking of is the utility over hype. That the main driver of many prices out there are hype driven, but I believe that we're actually knocking on the door of utility driven pricing, where what will happen is that people will ask the question of where are things being built, where are where are all the transactions, and people will start actually buying these tokens because people will be using these tokens. And when that starts happening, there will be a flippening of the thing that drives the price.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, thinking about some of those signs that is starting to happen alone, thinking about people who are really trying to move away from Ethereum because of the lack of accessibility for a lot of new people. And there are a ton of new entrants into the space right now that are becoming native and starting their journey in a different spot on Algorands, on Phantoms, etc.
But to be very clear, I believe in a multi-chain future. I think most non-maxis do. I think that there is room for many different chains out there that do different things. And that's something to just keep in mind. I mean, this is why Reach, we are blockchain agnostic. So developers can choose which chain that they want to actually build on without having to build a completely or learn a completely different skill set. And just so happens right now, out of all of the chains that we offer to, the new developers that come in, because once again, we attract the new developers that have never built anything. They ask the question of like, okay, well, what is the technology that best serves my needs? And, for those new devs, it's Algorand.
That's awesome. So speaking of building on Algorand then, and by the way, for what it's worth, completely agree. It's a multi-chain future without a doubt in my mind. But that being said, you're building something on Algorand. That's where your first party experience comes. Can you tell people what that is?
Yeah, so we are going to be launching HumbleSwap, which is an AMM DEX. It, knock on wood, plan on going and hitting production next month, so February, whenever, depends on whenever you watch this. And yeah, it's kind of weird what we're doing is that we named it Humble because I personally don't like the toxicity of crypto right now, because I feel like it drives away many of the traditional people in the world. They don't like the flag wielding tribalism that currently is. So naming it Humble forces us always to think we got to be humble. We got to make sure that we don't push anybody away, and we're building DeFi for all. And now, when I say all, I don't mean I can't wait until I'm the largest DEX on Algorand. That is such a so far from my mind. I have no intention of that being it whatsoever. I plan on HumbleSwap being the DeFi suite for everybody, no matter what chain. And we're actually in the process right now, because we might ask questions like, how do we do that? How do you become bigger than Uniswap? How do you become bigger than all of the big DEXs in the world? And I believe that the answer is twofold. Number one, your interface is a very guided interface. It's very approachable to the retail user out there. And we're doing this in a couple ways. A lot of people out there are thinking, okay, well, you make it as simple as possible. Well, we found the most simple interfaces out there are still scary to the traditional people. So what we're doing is we're actually implementing a help desk, which is mind-boggling that doesn't exist out there. So we're, a person-driven help desk that if people have questions about what they're doing, they can get answers. And building a lot of abstracting a lot of like the nerdy things about DeFi away from the end user, so they can just see what the value is. So they can instantly say like, I want to, it's, you and I might say we're going to mine liquidity. That doesn't make any sense to somebody else. But what we're going to do is analyze the wallets, find what coins that they have, and tell them how they can get the most value out of the things that they have, and be very guided on that. But at the same time, that's only the interface and the approach to the retail user. On the back end, because of how we're building this, we're building everything API first, meaning that we're building this for the institutions in mind. Because institutions don't use interfaces, they use APIs, and they make sure that everything is fast and as automated as possible. So the entire infrastructure is API first driven. So, and this is because of Reach, we kind of get this for free, and everything that you can do on the interface, you can do through an API. And we're already talking to many institutional players out there, and to participate, to provide the liquidity. And my goal by end of this year is to have $2 billion of TVL on HumbleSwap. And because the only way that we have to have that much TVL is because I want hedge funds to trade on our DEX. And when they're making $1 million trades, they need to be able to not sway the market, or any more than they already want to. So that's kind of where my mindset is. There's actually, I can probably digging into a lot more specifics, but the very high level is an interface that is approachable to the retail user, and a back end that is approachable to the institutions.
Strategically brilliant, right? I mean, you're thinking about the two patterns that you're starting to see in DeFi,
right.
and I think right now DeFi is still kind of uncharted territory for a lot of those traditional players for a variety of reasons, just not accessible, fearing the regulatory approach, and all sorts of things.
Right.
And I think we could do an entire other video just talking about that, right? That's a huge rabbit hole to go into.
Right.
One thing that I'm curious about, though, given the conversation we've had so far today, is in your experience, anecdotally, I think maybe people will appreciate what's different about building on Algorand in that space versus maybe other blockchains in the space.
Reach has made it so that the art of building isn't different. But
True.
One thing that is different about the Algorand community is the community. Is that sure, there's some bad apples out there that are still a little bit toxic because you can't really avoid it, but on the whole, the community is very accepting. And when something happens in the community, people go to their aid rather than throw mud. And it's just a very approachable place to come and be part of something. And I think it's actually ties into the whole culture of what Algorand is the anti-hype and the what are we really. And so you don't get a lot of those people that are out there in crypto just to get rich quick. So you have the rest of the people that are into blockchain, like myself, because we want to change the world. We want the powers that are in the world not to have the power anymore. We want the power to be spread out to the users. And that's what gets me out of bed every day. Is that I'm definitely not get rich quick. I'm doing the wrong path if that's the path. What I'm looking for. But it's how do we make a difference? How do we implement this technology to put more smiles on faces? And that's what I think a lot of people in the Algorand community think the same thing. That's
awesome. So people have, long story short, a new humble DEX to look forward to come February 2022 if all goes well.
That's right. We're aiming for Valentine's Day, so we can say humble has a heart, because That sounds, heart because it comes alive, and also, it's like everything together. So we'll see if we make it, but that's what we're shooting for.
Awesome. Fingers crossed. Best of luck. That's
Thank you.
2 days after my anniversary, so at least I won't be using the DEX on my anniversary. My wife would be very angry with me, but I will 2 days later.
Well,
Now,
let it get some TVL so that you can trade fluidly.
sounds good. Yeah, we'll wait for the liquidity to flow in. That being said, Chris, where can people connect with you and find out more about other stuff that you're building in the space, or developers if they want to try out Reach? Where can they
Yeah.
find all this information?
So you can find me at Chris Swenor on Twitter. I rant all the time. I'm getting pretty well known for that on Twitter Spaces or what have you. So follow me there. At least it will be entertaining. The least I can promise you. But if you'd like to develop your applications, if you want to build, if you're inspired and you want to get up and going really quickly, go to docs.reach.sh and join our Discord. It's actually quite active, filled with people willing to help, and they won't even ask you which chain you want to build on because they don't care. They're just building. And if you would like to check out Humble, we are on testnet right now. Be gentle. It is testnet, so it's not a fully working thing. So we know that there are bugs. But please let us know what they are, and that's at humbleswap.com. So that's usually, I think that's everything.
Nice, cool. And I will, of course, as YouTubers do, leave links in the description so people can find those quite easily if you're not already there as we're speaking. Most of all, Chris, thank you so much for being here and talking about Algorand, your experience, companies that you're building, the products that you're building, and your philosophy on the space. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Until next time.
There will be definitely a next time. And that being said, thank you so much for everyone who's watching. And until next time, cheers.